Oh my gosh, yet another freaking Final Fantasy 15 discussion video, and holy crap, that's a lot! Hey folks, BlackCross here, and welcome to yet another Final Fantasy 15 discussion video. The title of this video is going to be called, Will BlackCross Ever Let Go of Final Fantasy 15? I think we all agree that every single time I talk about Final Fantasy 15, it's as if I'm demanding it to be the best of the best. It's as if I'm practically begging for it to be better than anything out there. I basically wanted this to be the be-all, end-all Final Fantasy franchise, even though it's not quite the end of Final Fantasy. They confirmed this is not the last Final Fantasy, but this is rather the last Final Fantasy number. How long will it be before they finally change their mind and say, hey, Final Fantasy 16? Yeah, I have no doubt in my mind that they'll probably do something like that. But aside from that part, though, Final Fantasy has had a long history. I mean, for crying out loud, we're in 30-year anniversary for crying out loud, right? So 30 years of Final Fantasy. Yet recently, we're talking about the first anniversary of Final Fantasy 15. We're also hearing news of nomination awards for the Video Game Awards ceremony that 15 might actually get. And like I said back in the Nier Automata video, I've talked about how I would place Final Fantasy 15 first in comparison to Nier Automata. That was to be said that I think Final Fantasy 15 was a little bit of a better game than Nier Automata. Nier Automata was an okay-ish game. Final Fantasy 15 was okay for what it was, and for what it tried to do, what it did. As for how well it did, that's where the title comes into play. Will BlackCross ever let go of Final Fantasy 15? And the answer is, the day that I finally let go of 15 will be the day that Square Enix stop doing updates for 15. Something tells me that I will never let go of that, because they just recently revealed an upcoming DLC pack for Final Fantasy 15. In other words, after episode Ignis, the next one up is going to be episode Agna, the main villain of Final Fantasy 15, which I wanted for a long while, and so has everybody else. And needless to say, this is good news for me, because that means that one of my favorite characters in 15 gets his own episode, to where we get to find out what was going on behind the scenes, what he was scheming of. We get a little bit more detail as to what his personality is. And I'm looking forward to that part, but I'm also looking forward to upcoming episodes coming out later on. That aside, though, they just recently did an update for the main game where you can switch in between the 4 characters, which is something that I'm glad they're doing. They also did a multiplayer expansion, which is free so long as you got 15, known as Final Fantasy 15 Comrades. Haven't played it yet, but I do plan on playing it sometime later on, and from what I was hearing from one of my friends, because he played it, he said that you don't necessarily have to have 3 other friends with you. You can actually have it set to be 3 other AI, which, that's good news to hear. That means I don't have to worry about asking people, hey, are you available? No! Shit! No, I can just summon AI and be like, yay, I'm soloing a multiplayer game! How the fuck does that work? Apparently so. But either way, I went on ahead and downloaded it, and I do plan on playing it. And I don't know if I want to do like a whole Let's Play series of it, because if I did, that might interrupt a few things. I will do what I can. I can't promise much, but if I end up actually playing through Final Fantasy 15 Comrades, I'll do something. I don't know. Maybe I might do a Let's Play. Maybe I'll do a follow-up video talking about my experience with 15. Maybe I might even do like a whole review on Comrades. Who freaking knows at this point? But there's also potential of the next set of season passes that is going to be revealed for Final Fantasy 15. That's a lot for 15, okay? That's a lot. That's more than what any Final Fantasy game in terms of DLC that they have done in the past. And keep in mind, in the past, when it comes to Final Fantasy DLC, with the exception of Final Fantasy XIV probably, it's not been very well executed. Final Fantasy 13-2 and Final Fantasy Lightning Returns, if anything has taught us about DLC, it is that they tend to be a little bit greedy at times. Now, what do I mean by greedy? Well, them taking out critical story portions of the main game. A lot of people have basically talked about this. In Final Fantasy 13-2, there was a crucial story element that was never left in the main game. That story element being what happened to Lightning before Sarah and Noel ended their journey in 13-2. If you don't know what I'm talking about, here's the scene.
When the goddess dies, the chaos of Valhalla is unleashed. The chaos has the power to warp the timeline and destroy the past.
Now, with that being said, basically the DLC talked about how Lightning as well as Caius took their final battle, and basically Lightning realizes that time is already at a doomsday stalemate. So Lightning chose to freeze herself in time until the day came for where the end of the world came about, and she would wake up in order to try to save everyone. That's where Lightning Return comes into play. And again, I don't mind Lightning Returns. I feel like 13 was okay on its own. There was no reason to have sequels or prequels or anything like that. It was okay. It was good. Then they decided to do 13-2, and then they tried to fix that up with Lightning Returns. Like I said, 13 was okay. You don't have to play the other two to get the full story, because technically, where 13 ended off, nothing happened. It ended where it was. 13-2 decided to have a little quick little twist in time and decided to mess with the story. They was like, oh, let's see what happens if we did. Oh, look at that, I broke the whole entire franchise. There you go. There's Final Fantasy 13 in a nutshell. They was like, what happens if we did, whoops, there goes Lightning. Guess we gotta make a story about that. Yeah, sure. Why not screw up 13 as it is? 13 was probably one of people's most least favorite Final Fantasy games for some odd reason. Even though it was okay. I liked it, actually. And compared to what everyone else hated about it, there was really no reason to hate that badly. In fact, Gerard did a definitive video on 13. And I even talked about 13. I felt like that was probably, out of any video out there, that was the weakest video when it comes to talking about Final Fantasy 13. And honestly, when you look at the two sides, the internet lost. Like by default. He was being dumb, being stupid. Again, it was supposed to run on a joke. But besides that point, the point was it was weak. The argument is weak. And therefore, by default, there was no reason to have an argument to begin with. The stupid excuse that people have, the stupid complaints they give out, those are the biggest thing that people want to talk about. Yet we've got games like Call of Duty, and you're not complaining about that shit? But we're getting sidetracked on that one. The point is, when it comes to DLC for Final Fantasy 13, they weren't very well executed. In 15's case, however, they're doing a semi-good job at it. I say semi-good job because, well, like I said, you can't upgrade the DLC, the downloadable weapons, you know. And these are technical weapons that are like special featured for like certain selectable stores. Like for example, if you purchased it from Amazon, you got the Black Mage Twin Daggers. If you got it from, I want to say Target, you got the Lance from Final Fantasy XIV. If you got it from Walmart, you got the Gunblade from Final Fantasy XIII. And if you got it from GameStop, you get the Masamune Heavy Sword. So, again, you could get them, but you can't upgrade them. But that's just a small little nitpick. Let's talk about the main game itself. Okay, the main game. The main Final Fantasy XV. The main title that everyone kind of forgets. I say kind of because I will explain in just a sec. The main game of Final Fantasy XV, basically you, at being Noctis and your friends, go off on your little road trip adventure and everything like that. Then all of a sudden the kingdom falls, you realize your father's dead, so then you go out into the world trying to reclaim your throne to become the next king, yada 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 bing ba boom. The story itself is good. Gameplay wise is really good, combat's really good. Everything else around that though could have been a little bit better. And I will explain here right now. Complaint number 1. Too much driving. Now, to a certain extent, that's actually my favorite part in 15, is being able to drive your car around the world itself to the different parts of the area. And it's actually nice. It's very surreal. And especially whenever you got Final Fantasy themed music playing in the car, it's really good. And I do enjoy it. Now, to some extent, and I even talked about it to a bunch of my friends, the problem with the car, you feel more likely that you're going to be using the car all the time. Like, you're going to be looking for that car to go to the next area. It's basically a necessity. It's a need. It's a want. It's practically there, so why not use it? Why not use it is the problem. You basically have a virtually invincible machine. I say invincible to a certain degree, but an invincible machine that you can take anywhere you want to, fast travel, in fact, to the next area early on in the game. We're talking way early on. We're talking like right then and there. The biggest problem is the car. And because of that, the journey wasn't so worthwhile. In fact, the times that I used the Chocobo, I felt like it was really a Final Fantasy. The moments I was riding in the car, it wasn't really Final Fantasy until I started listening to the Final Fantasy music. And it's like, the main core of Final Fantasy, which is the car, ends up somewhat ruining the game for me in terms of a Final Fantasy experience. So it's like, technically an open world concept isn't a bad idea, especially since it's been done in the past. May not be as full-scaled, 3D, and beautiful as 15 is, but it's been done before. And the biggest part about it is the fact that you're always walking from point A to point B. In Final Fantasy XV's case, you're driving from point A to point B. The only difference is that if you've previously been to that area before, you fast travel. And they've done different things to help make the game a little bit more enjoyable, which is to have an upgrade customization of different car models. You've got the Air Machine model version, and you've got the Monster Truck version model, which was the update that they recently done a couple of months back. I myself had tried the Monster Truck, and I'm like, I would rarely use this feature. Like, honestly, I would rarely use this feature. The only time I would probably use it is if, for some odd reason, I wanted to see what was more powerful. This beast of a monster that I'm about to hunt down versus the Monster Truck. Surprisingly, the Monster Truck wins. Disclaimer: no real animals were harmed during the process of this test run. But aside from that point, though, it just, the car itself, while it was for the most part enjoyable, it was something that kind of ruined the Final Fantasy experience, because the point to going through Final Fantasy is going through a journey, a quest, a big adventure. You're riding a car the majority of the time. In fact, I want to say at least 50% of the time you're going to be driving the car to your destination. 50%. Again, that's a minor nitpick because, like I said, I liked the car sequence, but at the same time, it kind of ruined the experience for Final Fantasy 15. Second thing, the side quests. The side quests that 15 had. I loved the hunts. I loved the different hunts. They were probably my favorite part of Final Fantasy 15. They were very reminiscent to Final Fantasy 12 hunt system. I love the living shit out of the hunt system. Anytime you have a system where I get to hunt down boss-like creatures or a big span of enemy creatures and stuff like that, I'm there. I'm your hunter. In fact, you might as well call me Ace Hunter. Aside from that point, though, the point is that I loved that part. The side quests, however, the actual side quests, felt too much like Lightning Returns. In fact, I guarantee you they use the same gameplay engine as Lightning Returns to use the side quest mission parts. It kind of ruined the moment for me, you know? Because, I mean, side quests are meant to be like monumentous quests to attain an item or a rare weapon or some form of armor, or even to get an impactingly powerful summon that you can use to crush your enemies. These side quests, you get random items and a large amount of guild, which is useful. Don't get me wrong, these items and guild are very useful, much like the hunts themselves. In fact, I told a friend of mine that basically the hunts and the side quests I would do a lot of because that gave me a large amount of guild and a large amount of items. And I rarely ended up using some of the potions, except for like in certain situations where I ended up getting kind of stuck. Which happened a lot, I will admit. But aside from that point, I had plenty of potions. In fact, if you've noticed in my gameplay, I had a lot of guild build up because I went on so many hunts in the past that I was like, screw it. I'll go through all the hunts while I'm not recording, because that's the funnest part of the game. The side quests could have been a little bit better. They could have been a little bit more optional. They could have been a little bit more obscure. Instead of having a character wave at you like they stood out like a Thor fucking thumb. You can tell the difference between a standard character model versus the side quest NPC. It's like, hey, there's a random character. Oh, look, a side quest. It was pretty fucking obvious. And while, don't get me wrong, I love V. He's pretty cool on his own. But you can't deny the fact that once you see him for the first time, you said to yourself, he's an NPC side quest, isn't he? I know this guy. He stands too much out. He's not like everybody else, you know? He's like... Please, don't take any offense to me whenever I say this. He's basically Bogey 2988. When you see him, you recognize him in a crowd, and you rush towards him. To give him a hug, of course. In this case, you rush towards this guy because he has a quest for you. However, though, those same quests are also being a little bit better implemented, because that means you know if there's going to be an update or not in terms of any new quests. For example, there's actually a new hunt that's been introduced inside of Final Fantasy 15. I haven't done it yet, but I do plan on doing like a video episode of it, probably. I'm not quite sure. But yes, there is actually an optional creature that you can encounter, and it's actually a quest on its own. So, on one end, it is kind of redundant, but at the same time, it's cool to kind of see that, hey, this is how you're going to find your quests. See these recognizable people that can be easily picked out from a crowd? They're your main tickets to get extra side quests done. Makes sense. The next complaint that I've had. The ultimate weapons. Or ultimate weapon, per se. The ultimate engine blade. Is not the best weapon in the game. I can probably use 3 or 4 other weapons that are probably slightly better than the ultimate engine blade. I actually was thinking to myself, if this ultimate blade really is as powerful as it is, this is probably the easiest ultimate weapon that I've ever had to acquire. Unfortunately, it's not as Ultima as it seems. It's like, well, that was disappointing. I was like, well, I can say I've got the ultimate weapon. It's a piece of shit, but oh well. Now, if there's one thing that I've learned about Final Fantasy 15 is that platforming is not its biggest favorite thing to do. Final Fantasy 15 has taught me that in the most cruel and harsh way possible. A 3-part series of that stupid dungeon. What was I planning on getting? I wanted to get the Black Hood, which basically makes you auto-dodge. Auto-evade. Auto-dodge. I was like, this could very well be useful. It works half of the time. I went through that entire dungeon for nothing. However, though, it did teach me something. That platforming was not its best trait. And I'm like, people critic this for being close. People critic this for it being like Kingdom Hearts. Kingdom Hearts had better platforming than this one. I swear, Sora can jump, glide, and everything better than Noctis could warp to a destination. Ew, gosh. The most hardest platforming. And the platforming isn't even that good in this game. It's like, oh my gosh. Oh, the platforming sucked in this one. Battle combat was awesome. I loved it. Platforming in this game? It's a piece of shit. Oh my gosh, was this so terrible. I told myself I'm never doing that quest again. Ever. It's a cool ass dungeon. But it's not worth it just to get one item. Ugh. If it wasn't for the fact that it had auto-save features, I don't think I'd ever get out of there. Oh my gosh. Much less an auto-checkpoint system, where if you fell, you actually got back to a certain checkpoint. But those checkpoints are fucking ass long. We're talking ridiculously long gaps. It's like each one got longer and longer as time goes on. I'm like, when do I get to the end of this shit? Oh. Probably would have helped if I watched a video, perhaps, before doing this. But at the same time, I wanted to be surprised. What I get? I got aggravated. Another complaint that I have with this game, and it could be because of the fact they wanted it this way. They were like, well, for a lore-acidic way, we wanted it this way anyway. There's no reason for us to add any more. Lack of summons. This has got to be the one Final Fantasy game that had the least amount of summons in any video game entirely. You only get to summon 4. 4. And that is it. Bahamut gets summoned once, but that's all. And that's just a main story perspective. You don't even get to summon Infront. You don't get to summon the best summon in the game, which is Bahamut. You don't get to summon Infront. You just got Shiva, Titan, Rama, as well as Leviathan. That's it. Those are your 4 main summons you're going to be using. I kind of like the summon functionality, where it is that it shows up randomly when you're wounded in battle, and you can actually summon it when you're in a tight spot. I liked that feature to a certain degree, But however, though, the point still remains. That was all you could summon. There were no other samples. There was no Alexander. There was no frickin' Odin. There was no Diablo. There was no... You just had the 6. And out of the 6, you only got to summon 4. That was probably one of my other biggest complaints, was the fact that you didn't get to summon any of the unique Final Fantasy summons. You just got to summon 4. And they're not even 4 of the main ones. You know, you got Bahamut and Infront. Where are they? Why can't I use them? Let me use them. I love them. Let me use them. Please. But no, apparently not. And as far as I know, they haven't made an update to where you could. Even when you beat the game, they don't even give you an option to do it. It's like... So, the Final Fantasy franchise is reduced to us summoning 1 of 4. And the 2 that is the main 6, we cannot summon. I feel cheated. My hard work for nothing. I mean, record, these guys are godly powerful, yes. But I really want all of the summons that I can summon. I want more. Is that so wrong? Is that so wrong of me wanting more out of my favorite game series? Ay. But the biggest offender that I have about Final Fantasy 15, the biggest offender, and trust me whenever I say this, this is the biggest offender, the biggest crime, the biggest guilt that Final Fantasy 15 has. In fact, if it wasn't for this guilt, Final Fantasy 15 would be awesome. It would have been perfect on its own. We're talking like Final Fantasy 15, despite the 10-year gap that it hyped up to be, it wouldn't have been as bad. It would have been well worth it by that point. Instead, this is what hurt 15 the most. This almost broke 15. And this is why I won't let go of 15 until it is officially completely done. And by officially completely done, when Square Enix finally reveals, hey, we're going to reveal a Final Fantasy Ultimate Collector set, which means it has all of the DLC, all of the updates. Because we're done. We're done updating 15. We're moving on to the next Final Fantasy game. Everything around 15. Everything around 15 is better than 15 itself. Minus Monsters of the Deep. But that's aside the point. The point is the movie, the anime, the multiplayer game that's added on there, and the DLC episodes themselves is better than the main Final Fantasy game that it has spawned from. How does that happen? How do you make a DLC better than the main game is based on? The movie, Kingsglaive, amazing movie, absolutely love it, stunning CG graphics. I actually thought this was all live action, real live. I recommend any Final Fantasy fan to watch this movie. It is so amazing. Final Fantasy Brotherhood, animation, awesome, absolutely love it. Reminiscent to that of the Devil May Cry anime. Highly recommend watching all 5 parts. Then you've also got the fact that the individual DLC, episode Gladio and episode Prompto, those DLCs were awesome additions. And I have no idea what Ignis is going to be, but episode Ignis is going to be promising an excellent experience that it has to offer. Have not played Final Fantasy 15 Comrades, but from what I've been hearing from a couple of my friends, they said it is awesome. It is an amazing addition. They would have preferred to have it to where you can play all 4 characters and drive around, but this was actually fun on its own. Everything around 15 is better than the main game is based on. And keep in mind, these are smaller portions leading up to the big game itself. And yet 15 isn't as good, but yet all of the stuff surrounding 15 is essentially better. Why is that? What is it that made Square Enix all of a sudden say, hey, let's kick some major ass and release these awesome ass DLCs, even though the main game kind of got pushed back? The biggest problem that I feel was that Square Enix realized this was by far their most overhyped game in history. We're talking 10 years in development. Okay, 10 years in development. And somewhere within that same ride, it eventually fall off from the wagon and eventually just was forgotten. But then they were like, let's bring that back up, but change it a little bit, you know? Let's surprise our audiences. And they changed the story dramatically. Essentially, I thought there was going to be a big epic war in the main city. I thought there was. There kinda is, but there's not much there. But unfortunately, it just... It wasn't as great, but it was still a good game. Yet everything around 15 made it worse. Like, everything around 15 was great, but they made 15 look bad. You know, it's like you have this one guy, this one person who made one major thing happen and it helped everyone out. Then that one thing that came from everybody else, that came from that one guy, did all of these little stuff, but it impacted what this one guy did and it made him look bad. Imagine that scenario, you know? It's like you have this one big impact thing. Then all of these little things come around and they do different stuff around the game and they essentially build up to be better than the main game itself. That's what hurts me, and that's what hurt 15. Is that everything around 15 is better than 15. And that's why I have a hard time letting go of 15. And from here on out, I'm going to do my best, and by best, I'm going to do my damn best. I am no longer talking down on Final Fantasy 15. I am no longer doing that. 15 has done its damnedest to please me. It was a fun game. It's a fun experience. I highly recommend it. If you're a fan of Final Fantasy, I do recommend you playing it. Especially since after 13, it definitely earns its right to have Video Game of the Year. But then again, it's competing with Legend of Zelda and Mario, so good luck, Final Fantasy. I'm rooting for you, but even I have to agree, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is slightly better than 15. Damn. Anyway, though, like I said, I'm going to stop talking down on 15. This will be the last time there will ever be a negative thing involving 15. Instead, we're going to look forward to what Square Enix is going to put out for 15, especially since it's going to be releasing new DLC and hopefully some new updates. Some of these updates could very well make 15 a little bit better, but who knows really. But until then, this will be the final negative complaint about 15, but that does not mean I'm letting go of 15. No. I'm still grabbing hope for 15 because, gosh dang it, if no one else will, I might as well. Ouch, that actually hurt. At any rate, though, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video, and let me know in the comments below what you think about my opinions towards 15. What do you feel? What were your expectations for 15? Did they match up? Were they lackluster? Did they end up being better? Let me know in the comments below. But, take care, guys.